Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about how to listen to an Alzheimer's patient. I know from experience that two of the biggest problems Alzheimer's and dementia caregivers face are how to cope and how to communicate with someone living with dementia. My name is Bob DeMarco. I'm the founder of the Alzheimer's Reading Room. Let's get to it. Let's face it, Alzheimer's patients often say things that seem nonsensical to us, or say things that leave us exasperated, confused, frustrated, and sadly, sometimes angry. The words they say often cause us to react negatively. So here's the issue. Are you really listening to the person living with dementia, or are you immediately reacting or overreacting to their words? Once I took the giant step to the left and entered Alzheimer's world, the words my mother was saying took on new meaning to me, often new and entirely different meanings. I actually started listening to her instead of overreacting, and I found that our life improved dramatically. I want you to imagine yourself calmly leaning up against the wall and listening to your Alzheimer's patient. While leaning up against the wall, try and think about the words they are saying. What do they really mean? Pay close attention to the look on their face. The nonverbal cues can often tell you more than the words. You can also do this exercise while sitting in a comfortable chair and imagining an encounter, an episode you had, an incident, something that's already happened with your loved one. Or if you're having one single big problem, by imagining a recurrent episode in your head. Example, the dementia patient says, "I want to go home." Of course, that can mean many different things. In the case of my mother, Dottie, home meant home to South Philadelphia. At the time she was saying this, we were living in Delray Beach, Florida, and my mother had been living there since 1977. Dig this. Dottie lived in Delray Beach from 1977 to 2012. That's 35 years. So you would assume home meant our home in Delray Beach. But during the period from 2004 to 2008, when she said she wanted to go home, she wanted to go home to South Philadelphia, a place where she had not lived since 1943. I can laugh about this now, but at the time it was rather disconcerting. When my mother said, "I want to go home to South Philadelphia," or "I want to move to South Philadelphia," I often said something mean, like, "Go ahead, I'm not going. Go ahead, you can't live alone." Or I might try to explain, "You are home." Big mistake. Or I tried some other wordy explanation. And all that ended up doing is making my mother meaner, angry, and sometimes she would go in her bedroom and refuse to come out for hours. So, how was I feeling when Dottie repeatedly said, "I want to go home"? Well, most likely the same way you feel when this or something like this happens. I felt crazy, disconcerted, frustrated, and yes, sometimes angry. On the surface, what she was saying didn't make any sense to me. We were home, hence the frustration. This is a big problem in caregiving when you start making it about you instead about the Alzheimer's, instead about your loved one. So, on one hand, I felt angry because I heard her saying she didn't want to stay here with me in Delray Beach. That's what I felt like. She wasn't appreciating me. So she didn't appreciate the simple fact that I was taking care of her 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Maybe that's what I was hearing. Did you ever feel like that? Did you ever feel like you are underappreciated? That your loved one doesn't appreciate the tremendous effort you're putting in to care for them? Well, most of us know what that feels like. So anyway, I made it to Alzheimer's world and started paying very close attention to the things my mother often repeated, like the word no. That was pretty much every day, all day long. Or, "I don't know where he goes all the time." She was always telling anybody that would listen that I went out and I wasn't around, and basically that I was up to something. It wasn't true, but she thought it was true. My mother also told me, "Get out, I don't want you here, I don't need you, I can take care of myself." I can't tell you how much that hurt until I learned to deal with it. And of course, I want to move back to South Philadelphia. Finally, as I leaned against the wall and started listening, it finally dawned on me that Dottie wasn't really saying, I want to move back to South Philadelphia. Instead, she was trying to tell me she wanted to feel safe and secure. This is a major problem in people who are living with dementia. So think about it. I can only assume Dottie felt very safe and secure when she lived with her parents in South Philadelphia. She was also very happy. I know this because she told me lots of good stories about when she was young and growing up, happy stories. So no wonder she wanted to go back to South Philadelphia. After I thought of it for a while, I thought maybe I want to go there too. Just kidding. Once I figured out how to look beyond the obvious and listen to what Dottie was saying, read between the lines, so to speak, I found that I was no longer disconcerted. I was no longer frustrated. And I didn't get angry about her words. I started doing two things. First, when Dottie said I want to go home, I simply responded, okay, we will look into it. Or maybe I said, we will have to go up there soon and look for a place. This totally diffused Dottie, and it seemed to satisfy her, and we could move on in our day. The less words you say, by the way, the better. If you use too many words, it doesn't work well. If you haven't read my article entitled Alzheimer's Communication Tip, No More Blah Blah Blah, I suggest you do so. I think it'll help you out a lot. You can find the link to that article in the show notes below this podcast. Once I started listening, I also started learning. I'm going to repeat that. I also started learning. In this case, I decided I was going to address the issue of safety and security head on. So I started putting my arm around Dottie and saying things like, I really like it here in Delray Beach. This is a very safe and secure place to live. Or, wow, it's really cold today up in Philly. Here we are at the pool. I bet they wish they could be at the pool with us. They are freezing their butts off up there today. This usually made Dottie laugh. By the way, I didn't wait until she said I want to move to South Philly. I started saying this to her around the simple idea that the weather was nice, it was easier to live here, and those kind of things. So I tried to layer on the positive reinforcement every chance I got. I also started to put my arm around Dottie, my head up against her head, and reassured her as often as I could. This technique changed our lives, and you can find the link to that article in the show notes below about touch. After 2008, after I started doing all these things, Dottie stopped saying, I want to go home. But on those rare occasions when she did, I thought, uh-oh, I better start communicating some positives. I better get her out into the bright light. And we need to do some things to reinforce safety, security, and trust. Quotation marks around the word trust. I was clearly learning how to cope and communicate with a person living with Alzheimer's, in this case, my mom. Bottom line, you just have to try to relax, listen, lean up against the wall, and figure out what your dementia patient is really saying. And then you can start to take positive action instead of reacting negatively. Just so you know, the result of creating a safe, secure environment by frequently putting your arm around your loved one and reassuring them, by telling them it is the two of us now and that you are going to take good care of her, him, will likely create the long-term effect you are looking for. They will stop saying mean, harsh, or nonsensical things. Or at least they'll do it less often. I cured a major problem by listening, then communicating positively with Dottie. I can't emphasize this enough. Layer on the positive reinforcement. Resist the temptation to say something negative. It is not well known, but a dementia patient might not remember what you said for long, but the unhappy feeling of what you said might stay with them for a longer period of time than you could think. This leads to confusion, meanness, and sometimes a very bad caregiving day. This might sound odd, but I learned that in most cases you have to meet mean, disconcerting, or hurtful behavior on the part of a dementia patient with the exact opposite kind of behavior. Let me explain this. When my mother would say, get out, I don't want you here, I can take care of myself, instead of going blah, 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 and explaining to her how she couldn't live by herself and how she was going to end up in a nursing home. Instead, I would just go over, put my arm around her shoulder, put my head on her head, and say something nice and kind like, I'm going to take care of you, Mom. The less words, the better. So the lesson right here is be kind, understanding, and lovable. It works. Think about it. If I was kind, understanding, and lovable to you, wouldn't you like me better? Wouldn't you be telling people what a good person I am? You do what I am describing, and guess what is going to happen? Your loved one will stop engaging in the undesired behaviors and start acting more like you. That's right. They'll start acting more like you, kind and gentle. You have to go first, though. You have to be the leader. Imagine it. While learning to cope and communicate with the dementia patient, you have to learn, give them back the exact opposite feeling and emotion of what they are giving you when they're acting confused, mean, or angry. Give them a hug. I wrote an article about that too. You can find it in the show notes, The World's Greatest Hug. Put your arm around the shoulder. You would be amazed at how this works. And by the way, here's the best part. You'll start feeling very good about it yourself. And if you feel good, your loved one will feel good. All of what I'm describing has a cumulative effect over time and makes the entire caregiver experience better. Now, of course, you can just keep on doing the same old thing over and over with the same pitiful result. But I want you to think about this. The average caregiver takes care of their loved one for more than 8 years. The good news, you get to decide how those 8 years are going to go. Listening is an important part of the process of learning how to communicate with someone living with dementia. Always be kinder than you feel. It will work if you are patient and determined. I'm telling you, meet meanness with kindness and you won't believe what happens next. Did you know we have 34,494 active readers who already subscribe to the Alzheimer's Reading Room? We offer a free service. You can be the first to get notified about our new articles. All we need is your email address, and you are good to go. You can subscribe in the Alzheimer's Reading Room.com. In the Alzheimer's Reading Room, we help caregivers live a better life. Even better, we help you to help your loved one living with dementia to have a better life. Think about that one for a while. You can find a bunch of links to related articles that are related to this podcast in the show notes or below the article. My name is Bob DeMarco. I'm the founder of the Alzheimer's Reading Room. You just listened to original content from the Alzheimer's Reading Room. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.